Hey guys, happy Wednesday. Valerie Hunt, RunRx, Ask Me Anything. So I love these Wednesdays because I get great questions throughout the week, and what I can do is come back in and answer those for you. So most people don't reach out to me, unfortunately, unless they're injured or kind of stuck in a plateau, or I want to get faster, I want to run longer, but something hurts. So what I try to do is of course, speak to that, because run pain-free is ultimately my goal for everyone. And I always tell people, when I first started running, it didn't feel good for me either, which is why I started looking into how to run pain-free. And the fun part is, it turns into all of your other goals. But first it has to start with what is running. So I always like to go back to that. What is running? If I'd never been running in my life and I just decided I'm going to start running, what do most people tell you to do? One, go buy a pair of shoes. And then they're like, just go out the door and put one foot in front of the other. And I'm like, If you were walking on a tightrope, absolutely. But unfortunately in running, it's about pulling the foot up under you instead of anywhere in front or behind you. And so first we have to address the movement of running, and then it turns into, okay, now I know how to move, I know how to run. So then I can run longer, and then I can run faster, right? Then you can start running. But first it has to be about the elements of the run. So, hey Becky. Aw. Becky is a great example of someone that came in and met me and was not loving to run. Then started working on the skill drills and the practice and the strength, and is running. We ran a 5K together a couple of years ago. All right, so the number one question that I got for this week, and by the way, if you have questions, you're welcome. I'm nearsighted, and that's why I reach in. So just so you know, that's why I do that. But if you have a question and you didn't get to send it in, or you just want to ask it now, post it right here on the comments, and I can actually see that. So if you have a question that comes up. So the two questions that I got this week to answer was, one, my calf is hurting, it's cramping when I run. And the other one is, how high should I lift my knee? And I really am going to answer the calf question first. So anytime that you have pain during your run, other than I can't breathe kind of pain, then really it's your body letting you know that you're just staying on the ground too long. So calf pain, and we'll go through a little bit of a fun thing here. If my calf is hurting, usually it's because I'm pushing off the back. So when you push, what happens is you press into the ground, and when you push into the ground, it takes your knee back, and now my calf is loaded. So then if I push, I'm pressing my body weight really into the calf. So if I push to go forward, it's even worse, because now I'm going to take all of my weight and push it, and then my leg just traveled back. And unfortunately, the calf is like, no thank you. So over time, you're just running by pushing. And pushing equals jumping. So if we were going to do a jump instead of a run, it would feel great. But how many jumps could you actually do, repeated, before the calf gets tired? So for some of you, it's a mile. Some of you, it's 10 minutes. Some of you have been doing it for a while. But you wouldn't normally do that. You wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to jump today. So 1 mile is about 1,500 steps. Imagine if you said to yourself, I'm going to go out and jump for 3 miles, so that's 4,500 jumps. Oh my goodness. Wow, your calves are like, thanks a lot. Instead, what if you said, okay, I'm not going to jump, right, and keep my knees bent. I'm going to pull my foot up from the ground, which is what we teach. And pulling means I apply none of my body weight to the ground. And I want to do the opposite. When I feel my foot's on the ground, I want to use my hamstring to pull my foot up. It's like if we were walking and talking and I was barefoot and I stepped in something, I go, ooh, right? Or, you wouldn't be like, oh, I just stepped in something weird. Let me press into it and really get a sense of it. You'd be the opposite. Or if you're in mud and you're like, oh, it's pulling. It's just getting the foot up. Uses, honestly, no active calf. Isn't that cool? When you run and you use the pull, you only use 10% active muscle contraction, and that muscle is the hamstring. So then you could say back to me, well, wait a minute, Valerie, there's there's no way my calves are not working. I didn't say they weren't working. I said active muscle contraction. What's that? That means it's Valerie or you doing the movement. So say like I want to lift something and I put it in my hand and I did this. This is a bicep curl. It's an active muscle contraction. When I'm running and my arms swing, am I doing a bicep curl? No, right? You hope not anyway. So in running, it's the same thing. Muscles work as needed. Running uses every single muscle in your body. Your whole body is engaged. Everything's happening. You, however, only have one job, and then the muscles know what to do on their own. So that's really cool, which means, yes, my calves are working, but not in me saying work. I'm not asking them to do more work in my run. I do the opposite. I'm like, don't worry, guys. As soon as I feel my foot on the ground, I will pull it, right? So that's what's happening with calves. If my calves hurt, you just know you're pushing and your leg will be going back. So a great thing you could do is get near a wall and pull in place. And if you feel yourself kick the wall, you know you're pushing. It's little simple things like that. So pushing, we want to release. And what we do when we run is we just practice what to do. And if I'm doing with my knees bent, falling forward, you will simply feel less effort. So less effort means I'm using less muscular contractions, less active contractions. So that's with the calf. The other thing with calves is, you got to stretch them and you got to do the self-care and you got to do all that. But the reality is, if you leave them alone, so when you're running, if your knees are bent, this is really important, then I'm more likely to be able to pull than if I run and in any way my knee extends. So one of the things you can do to practice is leave your knees bent when you're standing. Stand in a ready stance, knees bent, ears, shoulders, hips in line, body weight in the ball of the foot. Stand like that in your normal standing. You'll walk like that. It's a much nicer way to practice, okay? So that's with the calves. So I'm just, hold on. Okay, I saw a question. So if my calves hurt, I'm inclined to think you're pushing. If my knee, so that was the question. How high do I lift my knee? Okay, first let's just talk about the knee itself, because knees get really, unfortunately, it's like people say that all the time. Running's bad for your knees. No, it's not. Running incorrectly is hard on the knee joint, but it's not bad for the knee because the knee itself is a joint, right? So it's a hinge joint. So the knee itself doesn't ever move, right? What moves? This part or this part, right? I can lift my thigh, my quad, or I can kick or pull, but the knee itself isn't moving at all, right? It's a hinge. It stays in the same spot. It's everything around it that's in motion. So I have to let go of thinking of it. It's not part of my movement. It's not what's on the ground. What's on the ground is my foot. What's important is when I'm practicing, I leave my knees bent. And you have to think it and you have to practice it. It's just because otherwise, if you're standing around with your knees locked all day, you're just in a constant state of putting pressure on the quad, the back, the hip. It's not nice to the knee. So think about that when you're not running so that it's natural when you're running, all right? But the knee itself, when you pull your foot, it stays right there. So the knee itself is always pointing down to the ground. There's no height of knee because the knee is actually hanging out, just letting the ankle pull under the hip. All of your action in running is below the knee. See? There's nothing happening here. Isn't that cool? But what is the challenge is what the eye sees. So when someone's running, right, then we see this leg go like this, right? Let me hold on to something. So when you run, your body falls forward, gravity grabs this leg and starts to take it, okay, in everybody. So what we see, if someone's a sprinter or they run really fast, you're going to see maybe this, right? So we're like, woo! But the knee itself never did anything. So keep that in mind. That runner, what happens is when you're traveling forward in space, this foot pulls up, right? But the going this way. So the foot pulls up and then it has to travel. So what we see visually is this action of that travel. But what's actually happening isn't really anything but the hamstring bringing the ankle under the hip. So the knee itself is not really doing anything. It's just doing its job. If you see your knee lift, especially in practice, you're using your quad instead of your hamstring. So be very careful with that. When you actually run, if you were to look down, you should see the knee itself is really staying, it's not traveling forward. The perception or the image is there because when I pull my foot, the knee gets out of the way, right? So my foot can fit. Like a closet door, but it's not, there's no action here. The action is the hamstring is pulling the ankle under the hip. So the more I get comfortable with what is actually happening in my movement, it helps me to let go of things. If you think about your knee while you're running, then you're gonna run with your hip flexors. And if you do that, it's tiring on the hip flexors, it's tiring on the quad, you're putting a lot of undue stress on the back. If I have IT band pain, I have shin pain, I have front of the foot pain, top of the foot pain. Generally, this is coming from that thought of reaching, because I want to get there. So if I'm like, I am reaching, then you're actually just hitting the brakes. It's like a kickstand. Because if I'm trying to keep this wheel under me as I go forward, and I go, wait a minute, kink, then that's going to stop my movement. So most running injuries are from stopping the movement, which is, again, having thoughts of things like knees, or even thinking about foot strike is another one. The person that had the calf pain, you'll be very careful that you're letting your foot relax on its landing. Oh, here we go, questions. Okay, hold on. How does your, oh good, okay, running downhill, great question. Okay, yeah. And then, okay, so running downhill, I'm gonna go over that. And then the next question is, how do I hold my pose while falling? I think sometimes my swing leg drops too quickly. Okay, good questions. Okay, so the first question I'm gonna go with is the running downhill. So this is great. So the gait cycle itself is pose, fall, pull. That's the elements of the gait cycle. So we can only fall from the pose. So the answer to all of the questions, just so you know, is first, pose, right? What is pose? Pose is the figure 4, right? So I've got my ankle is under my hip, the knee is bent on my standing leg, ears, shoulders, hips, in line. So this is pose. So in downhill running, because the ground slopes away from us, then gravity is already really active, right? Because the ground is already sloping down. So when you're standing at the top of a hill, the ground is here. Naturally, all of us take our shoulders and put them back here. It's normal to do that. So downhill running is simply pose, pull, because the fall element is already there. So what we do in downhill running is we make our body perpendicular. So you want to bend the knees, and if I'm here like this, I can't fall. I call this the banana. See how my shoulders are back here? So in downhill running, if I would bend my knees and take my shoulders over my hips, woo! Then you better be ready to start pulling your feet. So downhill running, you should feel like you're holding in place in your pose, and you just simply, this is downhill running. And the fun part is this: when you truly allow yourself to free fall, whether it's downhill, especially downhill, because it's free, it's like already happening, you do nothing. You will feel your feet literally spring off the ground. Like when I'm running downhill and I let go, not on a trail so much, so let me just say that, just on a road, no cars are coming, going down the hill, you should almost feel like you're a pogo stick. Like your foot touches the ground and it pops. The feeling on a downhill is like doing, 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 like a nice rebound-like feeling. If I'm not feeling a really nice rebound-like feeling on a downhill, you gotta say to yourself, self, you gotta get shoulders over your hips. Now, not everybody wants to go as fast, right? Let's say I don't want to go crazy down the hill. You will eventually, I promise, because once you realize falling is like so much more fun, you'll want to fall. But everybody, just so you know, if you started downhill with your knees really bent, you can control your cadence and your speed down the hill by simply increasing the knee bend. It just keeps yourself in a nice place to hold your pose down a hill. But like I said before, if it's a trail run or really technical, then keep your, you may not feel that spring if I don't have the ability to really just let go, right? So if it's a technical trail, there's a bunch of rocks, I'm just gonna be more like this, right? But it's all about where is my line? Where's my ears, shoulders, hips in relation to the line, right? So have fun with downhill running because it can be really fun. But it's amazing, if you stand at the top of the hill, just bring your shoulders up and forward and you'll immediately feel that need to pull, right? So that's really important. Okay, the second question was, how do I hold that running pose? Hold on. Okay, so increasing strike, so this is two questions. The first question was holding my fall, and the second question was increasing cadence, so strike tempo. Cadence on, let's see, let's go like this. Baseline cadence for us is about 180, okay, to use muscle elasticity, so that's baseline. So to increase cadence, you're going to increase fall. Fall is acceleration. So on a downhill, because there's no fall, you're right, cadence will increase simply by you getting more comfortable falling. Because remember, I can only fall from the pose. So the more you actually hold the shoulders over the hips, then yes, your cadence will increase. And also, just so you know, that's not just for running downhill, that's for running uphill, straight, sideways, whatever, okay? But on a downhill, absolutely. The more you get your shoulders from being behind you to over, you better be ready to pull quick. It's important. You have to be prepared to pull because gravity on a downhill is showing zero mercy. It's pulling your foot. It's got your whole body. Basically, downhill is like this. Like gravity is just taking your feet, right? That's why so many people run down a hill like, ah! And you're not. You're going to go, oh, I'm good. Bend my knees, shoulders come over, and pull your feet, right? And yes, your cadence will 100% increase. Second, someone said, how do I hold my pose for longer and fall, right? Honestly, one of the best practices, stand and pose. How often do we stand in our running pose just for the sake of being in the running pose? See? So a lot of us, we stand here, and are we really in pose? Are you really taking your shoulders and this part of your body up and forward? See, when I'm standing here, my upper body is in the fall already. What's not falling? Why am I not falling? Because my hips are behind me in a bit, right? My hips right now are over my ankle. As soon as my hip is over the ball of my foot, time to fall. So then you practice just standing in pose. Second thing you practice is pose, fall, pull. So I'm in pose, fall, pull. You see how quick that pull is. As soon as your hips go, as soon as your body goes this way, pull your foot. So the more you can get comfortable with that sensation, here's my pose. Pulling is really very simple, right? It's just a change of support. The challenge is this, in the free fall, you know? And it's just letting go. My favorite two practices, one is using a wall just to feel what is falling, right? Do it in pose so I can feel that sensation of woo! And then use the wall to stop you so you can feel also, right? Am I in pose? The other one I love to do, and by the way, I do so much of my drilling in parking lots, and you just take a band out there. First, just hang out. Hang out here. Check out your feet. Can you bend your knees? Can you leave your feet kind of flat with your knees bent? Bring your hips forward. So first, just get comfortable holding, right? Then I want to feel pose. So in pose, I'm going to be a little bit more out of balance. A little bit more work here, but only making me better. And then when I feel like I'm here, I'm gonna practice pulling and keep bringing my hips where they need to be. Check that my shoulders are relaxed. It's just to help me develop that I am actually holding that pose and get more comfortable in it. But where's the fall from? From right here. So then when you let go, you're like, woo! You know, so feeling those sensations of letting go. So when you go to run, you can sense, really what you'll sense is I'm not falling, or maybe I need to correct my pose. And then it becomes like autocorrect. If I'm running and I'm like, I hear this, you're like, ooh, I must be scraping. Let me pull, right? Or you're running and you start to feel bouncy. Okay, I'm really bouncy right now. I must not be bending my knees enough. Oh, okay, there we go. Right? Or I'm running and I'm like, whoo, I feel like I'm working so hard, but I'm not fast. I'm not going where I want. And you're not falling. Pick a fall point. That's what I do. Here's my fall point. I'm going to attach a magnet from my chest to here, here, to here, and let it pull me. Woo! You have to have some fun. You got to use some imagery. But remember, falling is something that all of us can do. Isn't that fun? Every one of us can fall. We can trip and fall. We don't really want to. So it is a controlled fall, right? But the simplicity of simply learning to fall is you being open to making yourself practice. It's not going to magically happen when I run. I have to connect with it. So then when I do run, I'm telling you, use your magnets. Use something. Always be like putting yourself in the place to fall, especially in the beginning, and then falling just is. Because we're with gravity all the time. We just don't think about it, right? So that's kind of the fun. Yeah. And guys, what's kind of fun too, so like I said, if you're overstriding, if you feel like my legs are heavy, I'm overstriding, reset. Just come back in. Up, 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 up. If you have not gone through our reboot, we have a 30-day reboot on YouTube. It's free. It takes you through the how to practice. I've got a bunch of skills, strength, and self-care, but the beginning part is what you should go through. Like, what is pose? What is falling? What is pulling? First, kind of connect with that. And I show you how simple it is. I mean, and I really, like, except for maybe a band, I try to do everything body weight, right? And don't limit yourself. There's no limits. If you haven't watched Kipchoge's thing, no human is limited, we limit ourselves. Someone says to me, this is what I hear a lot. Oh, I have tight shoulders. So do I, so what? We all have tight shoulders, we all have tight hips, we all have tight calves, whatever. We do self-care to address those issues, but I promise you that if you allow yourself to free fall and work with gravity, running is very natural. Your body loves it. Your knees will thank you. Okay, so again, go in there and really try. Yes, yes, yeah. And Jamie, I'm telling you, it's in the beginning, you feel like I'm thinking all the time. I'm thinking all the time. That's okay, you're connecting. And then all of a sudden, it just starts to be, right? We let my daughter drive for the first time last night. I'm like this, right? Because she's first learning, so you're like this in the car. And then by the end of the lesson, she was able to like stop the car without everybody getting, whiplash. It's gonna be the same with you. And absolutely, all of the fear of falling comes out, especially in the beginning. All right, so if you wanna go through the reboot on YouTube, we're leaving that up, and you can ask questions on there also. And just so you know, I do a online membership. It's 12 weeks of coaching. You get Zoom coaching, you get video coaching. You can talk to me anytime. It's really 12 weeks of you sending me videos and me sending back analysis plus feedback on what to do. You've got daily practice, and we're gonna close the membership. We've got a bunch of people in there right now. We're having a lot of fun. So if you wanna get in, come on in. It's a lot of great times. RunRx.fit. Otherwise, get on that YouTube and ask questions. It's so fun to talk to you guys. Have a great day. Thank you.